Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at the Casio A168. Now the Casio A168 has already been covered quite a bit on YouTube here, but the variant that I'm going to look at, I don't think it's been covered yet, and it's right over here. This has a negative display. Now watches that have negative displays are kind of hit and miss. Some of them can look really nice, but it's at the cost of better visibility. But we're still going to give the A168 a fair shot, and throughout the video I'm going to be comparing the A168 with this watch right here, the A158. Both watches are part of Casio's retro collection, except this one's a bit smaller and it's a bit cheaper, so we're going to see whether it's worth the extra price point for the A168. Also, just a quick update, I'm finally a YouTube partner, which means that this channel is monetized and I get a small cut of the revenue, which is really awesome. I'm not quite at big YouTuber status yet. No one's recognized me off the streets just based off my channel, but who knows, maybe at 10,000 subscribers, we'll get there. But without further ado, let's begin the review. So as always, we're going to start off with an unboxing here. I actually really like this packaging. So you can see right here, we got Casio, the vintage collection. It's a really nice metal tin. I could almost picture this tin being in like a vending machine at an arcade. It really has that nice vintage style to it. But I will keep in mind that I don't think all sellers or not all retailers will have this packaging. If you buy this watch, I think from places like Amazon, it'll just come in like your standard generic cardboard boxing, but this one was, I believe, from Simon's. So if you go to a department store, they might have this type of packaging for you. So we're gonna go ahead and open the box. And we have our standard foam. This is the watch right here. Other than the outside casing, the inside really is nothing special. We just got some foam packaging and that's about it. So here's the watch right over here. We're gonna actually skip that for now. I'm just going to quickly show you that there is just some standard instruction manuals and a warranty card. Nothing really that special, you know, the material is just standard paper. It's quite flimsy. Pretty much all of the vintage collection for Casios are all the same. It just comes with these two standard instructions and warranty card. Now let's talk about the design, and we're going to start off by actually looking at the Casio A158 first. I think that design is a lot more 1970s to 1980s-esque. I think it's just a combination of the color as well as just how the dial is laid out with all the text. It's a bit more crowded and yeah, it just looks more retro. If you look at the Casio A168 on the other hand, there's still text on the dial, but it's a lot less and it's more spaced out. And I think the combination of black and silver just makes it a lot more streamlined. One consequence of having that mirror-like black dial on the A168 is that it's quite reflective. If you check the time, you can often see yourself in the reflection. This is in contrast to the matte camel color on the A158. You can still kind of see yourself in the reflection, but it's definitely not as noticeable. Another big difference between these two watches is that the A158 has a positive display, while the A168 has a negative display. Now typically negative displays just aren't as visible, and the camera footage does seem to support that. But in terms of real life usage, I actually find the dial to be quite visible. I haven't had that many issues with checking the time. And just for the sake of comparison, I'm going to bring in the Casio A100, the Pac-Man edition. Both of these watches have negative displays, but I will say that the Casio A168 I think has an overall more visible display, and I think it's a combination of having a bigger display, and also because the Casio A100 has a gold case, which definitely distracts you from seeing the time. Overall, in terms of design between the A158 and A168, I would say that it's a tie. Because both offer good designs, it's just that one caters more to the 70s, 80s look, while the other one's more to a 90s to 2000s look. And at that point, it really just comes down to personal preference. Now keep in mind that this comparison doesn't always hold true because there's so many different variants of the A158 and the A168. If you do a quick Google search online, you'll find silver variants, black variants, gold variants. So if you don't like this particular version of the A158, for example, you can definitely find one in a different color and a different style. In terms of the functionality between these two watches, they're exactly the same. All of Casio's retro digital watches do the exact same things, which is the stopwatch, alarm, and backlight. One major difference though is that the backlight in the A158 comes from the side and it's not very visible, whereas for the A168, the entire LCD screen lights up, which is way more visible in low light conditions. When we move on to the crystal, the case, and the bracelet, again, we're going to see a lot of similarities here. Both dials are protected by mineral crystal. This should offer some level of protection, but definitely be prepared to see scratches begin to accumulate. The case is even more scratch prone for these watches. They're both made of resin, which is just a fancy word for plastic, which probably helps keep the cost low for these watches, but it's extremely easy to leave marks on the case. And to prove my point, look at the scratch marks on my Casio A100. This was caused by simply using the calipers to measure the dimensions of this watch. So regardless if you choose the A158, A168, or the A100, you're getting a watch that's really hard to keep in perfect condition. Flipping around to the back, we finally see our first pieces of metal. We see a stainless steel back and also a stainless steel bracelet. The quality of the stainless steel is about the same, and that's to say that it's pretty thin and it doesn't feel that expensive. The design of the bracelets are a little bit different, but they're pretty much the same. They both feature a brushed silver design, and they both have flat rolled links, which means you can easily slip this under a cuff, but it also means that they can easily catch arm hairs. So you can kind of see that there's a common theme going on here. These two watches are quite similar, but what they do feel different is when you wear them. On the wrist, the A168 just feels a lot more substantial. This likely has to do with the difference in size, with the A168 being 9.8mm thick versus 8.5mm, 35.2mm in diameter compared to 33mm, and 38mm lug to lug versus 36.7 for the A158. By the way, just a shout out to Ben's Watch Club for having the measurements on his website. I just didn't want to risk damaging the case with the calipers because it's actually not my watch. This was loaned to me by a friend. Now I have 6 inch wrists, and I would say that both watches fit me pretty well, but if you have larger wrists than mine, I would say that the A168 would probably feel better, especially with those with wrists larger than 7 inches, because at that point, the A158 is just going to feel like a toy on your wrist. Now in terms of price and availability, you can find this version of the A168 for around 75 to 100 Canadian dollars, which is about 60 to 80 US dollars. Now in terms of availability and where to buy it, that's where things get a little bit tricky. There's no like Casio store where you can buy these, at least to my knowledge. I try to look online, but there's only like the product page, but you can't buy it from the Casio website. Where a lot of people end up buying these Casio watches is through like department stores like Hudson's Bay or Simon's, or even Walmart sometimes has them, and sometimes places like Amazon and other online third-party sellers will have them as well. I really do wish it was easier to buy these watches online. I can understand for like a rare watch or for some luxury watches, it might be hard to purchase them, but for a watch that's $100 or less, I feel like they should make it easy to buy. Alright, so in conclusion, I will say that these two watches are pretty similar in terms of the design, the materials, and the functionality. It's almost indistinguishable between the two. But then you also have to keep in mind that the A168 has some designs that the A158 simply doesn't have. And just as an example, there is no A158 that has a negative display and a mirror-like finish, but of course the A168 does. Also keep in mind that the A168 is larger and it feels more premium, which kind of sounds weird because the materials are the same. But there's also a much better backlight on the A168, which is going to make a huge difference in terms of nighttime visibility. So now the question that stands is, should you buy the A168 over the A158? And I think you should consider the A168 if you're looking to buy one really nice digital watch. Now, if you're someone like me and you want to have a few digital watches in your collection, then probably the A158 will do the job at about half the price, at around $40. You really got to ask yourself how much more you're getting with the A168. And to me, it's just the size and the backlight. But other than that, they're very comparable. So anyways, that is it for my comparison of the A168 versus the A158. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and of course subscribe for more videos. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.